Are we keeping life as simple as possible so that we can enjoy and see what's going on around us? Let's not hurtle down the highway at 120 miles an hour with our eyes, fixed somewhere, because there's this beautiful landscape all around us, and it's something that we should acknowledge, as we're going through it. Further down. Yeah. We're back at Illuminated Crosstalk with Josh Matthews, pastor of Meadowview Baptist Church. And thank you for letting us use your nice facilities and your nice recording equipment. And thank you to, is it Aaron?
Aaron, yes.
Aaron, for
Turner
hassling me about using Android instead of iPhone, and but for editing the stuff and things like that.
If you need web work, I know our many viewers of this.
Yeah, we are here by popular demand, at least the demand of our wives, who said, you need to find something to do today.
Stop talking to me. Talk to somebody else. Yeah, our many viewers. If you need web work, Aaron is a great web designer and does a lot of stuff to help churches out, and he's been a great blessing here. So
yeah, that's great.
Yes.
So we're back, and our topic today is we're talking about family life, and so a few things, maybe a path forward through the day as we go would be. First of all, let's kind of talk about how important family has all of a sudden become. And then maybe talk a little bit about an illustration I came up with, or I thought of, was that family, even like the Christian family, has basically been stretched by society out in lots of ways, people running different directions. And now, because of the quarantine and the COVID-19, it's sort of snapped back together suddenly. So I would expect a couple of things. An initial snapping back. Whiplash is a great word for it. So families may be experiencing a certain amount of whiplash, but then as it gets back to maybe a more normal shape, maybe a relaxing, maybe benefits people are starting to have. Maybe people are even saying, we're not going to go back to the way it was before, potentially.
Heard it. Yep.
So if that is the case, so first of all, you may agree with all of that. We can have a fruitful discussion, or you may disagree with that, and then we can have an epic Twitter battle later. But I'd have to sign up for a Twitter account first.
I don't get on Twitter much anymore anyway.
Okay, all right. Well, it would still be epic if we did.
It would be epic.
Yeah.
Just pretend that it would be epic.
Yeah, I think so. In my imagination, it already is.
Yeah, I imagine, like, I tend to think of some families that now that they're all in the home, they're like, oh, I forgot you were one of my kids. Like that's how crazy, our society had been prior to this, that some of the kids were never even home except to sleep, get up, eat some breakfast, and then go on. And the same may have been true for moms and dads who work, lots of hours, and now they're working from home. And so, yes, I think the whiplash effect, that snapping back has been difficult.
Yeah.
for many to embrace. And you add in, parents now trying to do some of the online schooling with their kids. And we've seen some of the frustration of that online. But
And so you're kind of positioned at a good spot to speak to this, besides pastoring a church with ages all the way low up to high. You've got a great spectrum of ages in your church. And then you guys have 4 kids, all school age, and Judson with a birthday, right?
Yeah, Judson's birthday today.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Yeah. And so you've got that going on, but then Faith is also now teaching in the public schools. So she's seeing it from multiple angles too, not only having the kids at the house, but also in. So I'm excited about your insight in this today. Let's start with just all of a sudden we discovered that family really is important.
Yes, because family is there now, and I think just in conversations with some of our folks and some of the conversations I've seen online on social media, there is now there was always a recognition, especially amongst Christians, that family is important.
Yeah, because Christians would probably have embraced that, and culture and cultural pockets of our country that have been more influenced by Christianity. I think family has been more of a focus or an emphasis than in places that have gone more completely secular.
Sure, and I value, even at our church, family is one of our core values that we recognize. But I think for many Christians, it's a value or one of those core things in life that has been in word only.
Okay.
In a lot of ways, I mean, we would say, it's kind of like, I love my spouse and I can tell her that, but if I don't spend time with her, if I'm not serving her, and so that's what's being challenged now, which is what we kind of talked about last week that spurred this on, this pandemic's unearthing these opportunities for us now. And so I do believe, and like I say, many of the conversations that I've had and noted are pointing that direction, that people are kind of recognizing, man, yeah, family's pretty cool.
And we had really come up with a lot of cultural substitutes for family. So, you could live a very fulfilled, from a worldly perspective. Always interesting to hear these statistics come out. Are married people happier? Do kids make you happier and more fulfilled? And people are kind of even having a debate whether you needed family, because you could have your friends, you could have your social life, then you could retreat to the comforts of your own space and have Netflix to fall asleep to. And all of a sudden now, all of those cultural substitutes no longer come into play. You're not going down and hanging out with buddies. You're not engaging in some of these hobbies that people have. None of them necessarily wrong, but they certainly had presented, for the first time, I think, in human history, some sort of viable alternative to the society of family. Yeah. And now those things have all been cut off.
Yeah. The competition's over.
Yeah.
Do I go to the sporting event? Do I go to the bar? Do I, stay late at work? Now you're kind of forced into it. And I love that from the perspective of we serve a sovereign God who orchestrates these things and has in his will forced this upon us. And it makes me smile at that. And
you've got now, not just in the United States, but we've got Italy on lockdown, Spain on lockdown. You see these pictures of these, young people who in other generations would have already been married with a couple of kids. They're 25, 30 years old, and they're in their flats and in their lofts by themselves, and that's hard. That's got to be hard.
It's really foreign to me. That's kind of no pun intended, since those are all foreign countries, but just even that idea, because, I got married relatively young, just out of college, and we started a family pretty quick. And so that's kind of been the pattern that's been in my family and a lot of the people around me. And so it is hard to fathom being in that situation. Yeah. And basically Netflix and maybe a cat being your companionship,
At least get a dog, right?
At least
cats are
at least
just,
get a dog.
Yeah. So tell us about the illustration. The family has gotten stretched. What are you seeing that, the family is like that rubber band has been sort of decentralized and pushed out? What are the everyday things that families deal with that are kind of pushing them away from each other?
Pushing them away from each other?
Yeah, prior to COVID-19.
I mean, one of the main factors is school. Okay. And school events. Not school necessarily in and of itself, but just the events, the extracurriculars, whether that's sports or band one of the things I'm most thankful for is that I don't have to get up at like 6:15 in the morning and drive 30 minutes worth of driving to drop my kids off at schools and deal with the traffic of that. And so that's just created much less stress in my life.
Okay.
Because that's an early start to the day. And it always provided opportunities for me to talk with my kids in the vehicle, so I don't have that now. But yeah, I think for the most part, it's just sports and the extracurriculars that come along with that really has slowed down many of the circumstances. And I think you mentioned a while ago, even the friendships. Like we've got some families that I know that, hey, you can't go see your friends right now. We're not going to do this back and forth, and possibly spread that. And it's killing some of these kids. They're dying stuck in their house. But I think that'll level out in time too.
Yeah.
We've had those experiences where we cut like games off for our kids for like a week, in the summer, video games. And it takes about 2 days and their imaginations start to come back.
Yeah, sure.
And they begin to rediscover they can be creative. And so, yeah.
How many hours does a school-age kid spend, at school or school activities in a given week?
Yeah, and it'll vary. I mean, elementary is going to be minimal.
Still, what is that, 8 to 4, something like that?
Yeah, typically. Okay. Especially if they ride the bus, it'd be something like that.
So you're still talking about almost a work day, almost a complete work day.
It would be a work day. When you move into middle school, you do begin to add in, extracurriculars, things that may happen before school. My daughter did jazz band in middle school. She had to be there at 6:30.
Okay.
And then she would stay late for cross country, and so she wouldn't get done until 4 o'clock, something like that.
So you're 6:30 to, by the time you get home, 4:30. So a 10-hour day for a 12, 13, 14-year-old.
Oh yeah, and then potentially homework on top of that. Now that she's in high school, some of her homework level can be significant, and so she's up in the morning, getting ready at 6. We're leaving out the door a little after 6:30. She's wrapping up homework sometimes 7 o'clock.
Wow.
In the evening, just coming home, getting things done. And
so 12, I mean, we're pushing it to 12, 13-hour days for the kids.
Potentially, yeah. And and she doesn't play after school sports. Some of them, some of our students here are participating in things that keep them busy for an extra 2 hours. If they got a game, they're traveling, they won't get home till 10, 11 o'clock at night. I don't know when they do their work, how some of them fit that in. It amazes me. It's far more significant than it was when I was in high school. I went to public school, and the workload can be heavier. Not necessarily a bad thing, but the busyness begins to add up as well.
And then you're obviously involved in ministry, so then you've got on top of that, I mean, I know what my Sunday looks like. My Sunday tends to be the busiest day of the week. Yeah. So, you've got your kids going from Monday through Friday, so anywhere from, let's say, 8 to 13 hours. And then Sunday in a minister's home is, 12 hours typically. Maybe there's a break in the middle, but, by the time it all winds up, being a pretty full day. So,
yes.
Busy lives.
And I try to, our family participates with me at the nursing home, which we're not doing right now. But outside of that, I don't demand of them to come out early with me, to stay out late. We have 2 vehicles now, so we don't have to do that. We haven't had to do that for the last couple of years. And so some of those long days I can bear alone, and they can have I hate to use the term normal Sunday,
right?
But even that brings up a whole other element, because we can talk about, it is a busy day for the ministers, the pastor, some of the leaders, but it's a busy day for a lot of people that are just regular participants and members of the church. If they come to work the nursery, if they usher, if they're coming back for Awana and teaching, Sunday may be their busiest day of the week.
Okay.
Specifically some Sundays of the year. And I think that even what we're doing as churches now, where we're having to just stop, might reveal some things about how we as churches are adding more stress and more busyness into the lives of our membership than maybe we should. Do you have any thoughts on that? I would like to hear them.
Yeah. So, all right. So we've kind of described the pushing out, and let's talk about, the relaxing, right? You get the snap back, and maybe we'll talk about some snap back issues, but let's go ahead and jump into that. What's it going to look like afterwards? What are people going to say? You know what? It was kind of nice not to. And all these different things. And so I think we can look at that as a families and as a church. I think sometimes there's pressure on parents to make sure their kids are engaged in extracurricular activities that, quite frankly, they don't need to be, as concerned about. We want our kids to have lots of experiences, but a lot of kids will move on and never use that in a practical way again in their life. So
it's true. I never went into the NBA.
Yeah, me neither, shockingly. So, I think as families, there's going to be a sense that maybe we don't have to live this kind of life. The good sometimes crowds out the better.
Yes. Great way to put it.
So I think that's something we need to stop and say, would it be good? Yes, but would something else be better? Would family time be better? Would even just 3 or 4 dinners together a week be better where all of us are present? So I think families are going to have to stop and sort of evaluate that. Have we let good crowd out the better? And churches need to evaluate that too.
Isn't it funny that that's been said, written about, proclaimed, discussed in small groups for decades probably. And now for really the first time in over 100 years, like our hand is forced into that.
Right.
And I just think it's very interesting that this is a conversation that I've had dozens of times with dozens of people, and now here we are. What about, we didn't necessarily get to talk about it, and I have a couple thoughts on it, but the whiplash effect, what do you think are some of those? They're not necessarily negatives. I think
right.
they're heart-revealing things that are presenting themselves right now.
Yeah, I think a practical advice that I think we have is even though I normally work from home, I still have to. I'm still at work, and Katie teaches a couple days a week, so she's had to teach from home. So, getting used to communicating in each other's space a little bit better. Mm-hmm. I think we've had to say, okay, I have a Zoom meeting and you have a Zoom meeting, and we have 3 children who are unsupervised. So, we have to communicate and talk about our schedules. You don't have you're sharing space and you're sharing time now. And that brings up, like you said, it can reveal your heart. If you're sort of a selfish jerk, yes. It's going to become real apparent. And if you want to work through it, you have to have those conversations before. So I think communication is really important right now in planning and different things like that. So I think that's been a whiplash effect of sharing each other's space and time.
I think that's great. Yeah. I've noted just a lot of disappointments, and I think we mentioned that last week, just with plans that have been changed and disrupted. It's hard for social people to be cramped up in their home.
Yeah.
Even though there's a few other people around them, they want more people.
And do you have social kids? Or are they kind of divided up?
No, my kids are relatively comfortable, and we've got some neighbors that they can interact with, but we're a pretty introverted group in our house. And so they're decently comfortable, just playing with each other and
But some sort of run that spectrum of involved in every group and just needing more, seeming to need more interaction.
Absolutely. Always on the go, always doing things. I know, I think of some of our students here and some of our adults here, that was just kind of the norm of their life, and that's changed. And again, just another opportunity to grow in patience and trust. And so, we see that happening. One in particular thing I took away from a book or an article or a sermon, I don't remember which, was that, just every day going slow enough to observe one of God's attributes from creation, whether you're just looking at a tree, just slowing your life down to make sure that every day you have an opportunity to give glory to God for some of the natural things that he's doing around you. And I thought of that when you had said, driving down the road so fast that you don't even see the beauty of what's around you. So we all need to drive like my grandpa Howard did, and that was really slow. And he never looked at the road from what I gathered.
Yeah. All right. Well, good time, Josh. Thanks again for this, and
conversation.
We'll talk to you next time.
Okay.